Your Majesties, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the text I am going to read, I have no enemies, my final statement, was Liu Xiaobo's final declaration on December 23rd, 2009, at the trial against him. 2 days later, he was sentenced to 11 years of prison. I have no enemies. My final statement, Liu Xiaobo, December 23rd, 2009. In the course of my life, for more than half a century, the 4th of June, 1989 was the major turning point. Up to that point, I was a member of the first class to enter university, class of 77, when college entrance examinations were reinstated following the Cultural Revolution. From BA to MA and on to PhD, my academic career was all smooth sailing. Upon receiving my degrees, I stayed on to teach at the Beijing Normal University. As a teacher, I was well received by the students. At the same time, I was a public intellectual, writing articles and books that created quite a stir during the 1980s, frequently receiving invitations to give talks around the country, and going abroad as a visiting scholar upon invitation from England and Europe and from America. What I demanded of myself was this: whether as a person or as a writer, I would lead a life of honesty, responsibility, and dignity. When I returned from the US to take part in the 1989 movement, I was thrown into prison for the crime of counter-revolutionary propaganda and incitement. I also lost my beloved lectern and could no longer publish essays or give talks in China, merely for publishing different political views and taking part in a peaceful democracy movement. A teacher lost his lectern, a writer lost his right to publish, and a public intellectual lost the opportunity to give talks publicly. This is a tragedy for me personally, and for a China that has already seen 30 years of reform and opening up. When I think about it, after June the 4th, 1989, my two opportunities to address the public have been associated with courts. They have both been provided by trial sessions at the Beijing Municipal Intermediate People's Court, once in January 1991, and again today. Although the crimes I have been charged with on the two occasions are different in name, their real substance is basically the same. Both are speech crimes. 20 years have passed, but the ghosts of June the 4th, 1989 have not yet been laid to rest. Upon release from the Quincheng prison in 1991, I, who had been led onto the path of political descent by the psychological chains of June the 4th, lost the right to speak publicly in my own country and could only speak through the foreign media. And because of this, I was subjected to year-round monitoring, kept under residential surveillance, May 1995 to January 1996, and sent to re-education through labor, October 1996 to October 1999. And now, again, I have been shoved into the dock by the enemy mentality of the regime. But I still want to say to this regime, which is depriving me of my freedom, that I stand by the convictions I expressed in my June 2nd hunger strike declaration 20 years ago. I have no enemies and no hatred. None of the police who monitored, arrested and interrogated me, none of the prosecutors who indicted me, and none of the judges who judged me are my enemies. Although there is no way I can accept your monitoring, arrests, indictments and verdicts, I respect your professions and your integrity, including those of the two prosecutors, Zhang Rongo and Pen Xueqing, who are now being and taking charges against me on behalf of the prosecution. During interrogation on December 3rd, I could sense your respect and your good faith. Hatred can rot away a person's intelligence and conscience. Enemy mentality will poison the spirit of a nation, incite cruel mortal struggles, destroy a society's tolerance and humanity, and hinder a nation's progress toward freedom and democracy. That is why I hope to be able to transcend my personal experiences as I look upon our nation's development and social change to counter the regime's hostility with utmost goodwill and to dispel hatred with love. Everyone knows that it was reform and opening up that brought about our country's development and social change. In my view, reform and opening up began with the abandonment of the using class struggle as guiding principle, the government policy of the Mao era. And in its place, a commitment to economic development and social harmony. The process of abandoning the philosophy of struggle was also a process of gradual weakening of the enemy mentality and the elimination of the psychology of hatred and the process of squeezing out the wolf's milk that has seeped into human nature. It was this process that provided a relaxed climate at home and abroad for reform and opening up, gentle and humane grounds for restoring mutual affection among people, and peaceful coexistence among those with different interests and values, thereby providing encouragement in keeping with humanity for the bursting forth of creativity and restoration of compassion among our countrymen. One could say that abandoning the anti-imperialist and anti-revisionist stance in foreign relations and class struggle at home has been the basic premise that has enabled reform and opening up to continue to this very day. The market trend in the economy, the variation of culture, and the gradual shift in social order towards the rule of law have all benefited from the weakening of the enemy mentality. Even in the political arena where progress is slowest, the weakening of the enemy mentality has led to an ever-growing tolerance for social pluralism on the part of the regime and substantial decrease in the force of persecution and political dissidents, and the official term of the 1989 movement has also been changed from turmoil and riot to political disturbance. The weakening of the enemy mentality has paved the way for the regime to gradually accept the universality of human rights. In 1997 and 1998, the Chinese government made a commitment to sign 2 major United Nations international human rights covenants, signaling China's acceptance of universal human rights standards. In 2004, the National People's Congress improved the Constitution, writing into the Constitution for the first time that the state respects and guarantees human rights, signaling that human rights have already become one of the fundamental principles of China's rule of law. At the same time, the current regime puts forth the ideas of putting people first and creating a harmonious society, signaling progress. This is the regime's concept of rule. I have also been able to feel this progress on the macro level through my own personal experience since my arrest. Although I continue to maintain that I am innocent and that the charges against me are unconstitutional, during the 1+ years since I have lost my freedom, I have been locked up at 2 different locations and gone through 4 pre-trial police interrogations, 3 prosecutors and 2 judges. But in handling my case, they have not been disrespectful, overstepped time limitations, or tried to force a confession. Their manner has been moderate and reasonable. Moreover, they have often shown goodwill